First, it is time to call this May 18, 2020 meeting of the Board of Trustees for the San Felipe CISD to order. Madam Secretary, just before you call roll, just want to say that this meeting is being conducted again by video conference in accordance with the Governor's authorization concerning suspension of certain open meeting law requirements for COVID-19 coronavirus disaster. At this time, I will call on Secretary Diana Gonzalez. If you could do us the honor of calling roll.
Mr. Contreras?
Here.
Ms. Manuel Tawet, excuse me. Ms. Haynes? Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Overfelt?
Present.
Mr. Smith? And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting has been duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. At this time, we'll have opening ceremonies. We'll start first with a moment of silence, and I'd like to just say that we lost a bus driver recently on Sunday, May 17, 2020. The Lord called one of our bus drivers, Mr. Davila. He was 39 years old. He started working with San Felipe CISD on May 22nd, 2019 as a bus driver. Mr. Davila also was a substitute driver for the district from February 2019 to May 21st, 2019. His outside experiences include he worked for Coca-Cola, Red River Waste Solutions, and Veracon Incorporated, associate in tempering. We'll have a moment of silence and we'll follow for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you very much. We will start with our reports, and our first report that we have is 8. A COVID-19 school closure report. This will be Dr. Rios.
Thank you, Board President Mesa, members of the board. This is more of just a update rather than an extended report. What I wanted to share with our board was that since the beginning, right after spring break, when we went to shelter in place and start providing services at home to now, most of our employees have been working from home. We've had essential workers come to work, whether it's to prepare meals, deliver meals, pay bills, receive packages, but the larger majority have been working from home. Those that have been coming to the office have been receiving what we call premium pay, which is time and a half for approximately 20 hours a week. Today, what I'm sharing with the board is that we plan to cease the working from home beginning June 1. What that means is that beginning June 1, our custodians, our maintenance workers, in effect, anybody whose contract is longer than the 187-day teacher contract that we have, which are some of our paraprofessionals in the different offices throughout the district, definitely our custodians, and some other limited personnel. At that point, June 1 will be expected to come into work. We will, as much as possible, provide masks, which we believe we have enough in store. We will encourage social distancing. We have asked Chief Maldonado to do an audit of our workspaces to make sure that we have enough shields, whether it's that plexiglass that you've seen at some of the restaurants or offices. We will not have waiting rooms for people. So for example, as students begin to register for the next school year, we've traditionally seen a large number of students wait at student services. What we are going to do is we are going to advertise a phone number, and then we are going to have different registration stations throughout the district, almost at every elementary campus, where an appointment will be set for you. So we will hire extra personnel to assist with the registration. Mr. McCray will set appointments, and then he will direct some people to go register at Calderon, where he'll have personnel, some maybe at Lamar, some at Buena Vista, throughout the city, where parents can sit in their car. When their appointment time comes up, they'll come to the door and somebody will be waiting for them there. They'll be ushered into a space where they can do the registration with enough social distancing, but we'll be open for services, but we will not be open in the traditional sense of the word like we have. We're going to be open with a whole lot of precautions. But beginning June 1, the work from home will end, and the premium pay will end, and we'll start to have modified services for everyone. Today, the commissioner released some information, in effect stating that we could have summer school. Now, he gave a whole lot of restrictions. No more than 11 students per class. Students should not be made to come to summer school. You cannot require them to come to summer school in order for them to be promoted. You have to have some kind of a distance learning provided for them if necessary. We are not going to do that. We will not be having a summer school in a traditional sense. We will offer summer school much like we've been having now, but we're not opening up for students to come in at all. We're not mandated to do so. However, we're allowed to if we needed to. But we have enough of an infrastructure in place where we can continue to provide services throughout the summer for the students that need it, similar to what we've been doing now. If there's any questions, Mr. Mesa, that's the update I wanted to share with board members.
Dr. Reyes, would it be possible, and do we have the capacity to take temperatures and ask the questions, if you have any symptoms, mention a couple of symptoms for those people that are coming in for registration?
Yes, Mr. Mesa. Ms. Hernandez has been monitoring everything that's available from the state and the guidance, and she ordered some thermometers to have available. Unfortunately, everybody's backed up, but between now and the registration, we're going to look for hope to get the thermometers that we ordered, but also look for an alternative solution. So that is part of it, and they are on order. We just don't know how backed up they are. They indicated to her that they were on back order, but hopefully here within the next couple of weeks we'll get them. Either way, we'll have an alternate way of screening people before they come in. And that is part of the guidance. We'll be using the same guidance for the people that come to work in the summer as well. Ask them if they've had any of those symptoms, and as much as possible, try to take their temperature if we have the means to do that. And we're definitely gearing up to take students' temperature come August to be ready for that. So we'll be presenting at the next board meeting our plans to do that.
Okay, before I open it up to other board members' questions, wanted to have one follow-up question. That would be, have we taken inventory as to who has the capacity for connectivity, whether it be hardware, internet service, any device?
Yes, Mr. Mesa, and that's part of a presentation that's going to be upcoming. I think it's the very next agenda item. But we gathered all our addresses. We talked to Time Warner to see if they could take all those addresses that we have where students live and see if they can match it up to the billing that they have to see for what addresses they're billing for high-speed internet. Now that, obviously there are other ways that students could get internet services at home, but by and large, we're interested in the high-speed internet that can support video instruction and everything that goes with it. The second part to that is that we are preparing to launch a survey to our parents here in the next week, and that'll also be one of the questions. So that one, because not everybody will participate in the survey, but at least give us a percentage of the respondents. However, we think that in working with Spectrum, we will get the better results. And the gentleman indicated by the time we have our next meeting, which will be sometime this week, he would have that information. So I look for Mr. Henge to be giving us an update as to when we can meet with Spectrum.
Okay, thank you. Board members, if you have questions? Anyone? No questions. Okay, so thank you for that information. We're going to the next item, which is preparations for 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Lewis.
Mr. Mesa, members of the board, I am going to share a PowerPoint presentation. I will do the introduction, and then I will ask Ms. Gomez to continue, and then Ms. Gomez will pass it on to Ms. Garcia, and then we'll come back. It's not a lengthy presentation, but it is just a whole lot of very important information that we just want to make the board aware of and that we're preparing for. Just before I get started, I just want to check that everyone is able to see that presentation.
Yeah.
Yes? We've, over the last 2-3 weeks, probably since the beginning of May, we've been talking about what it would take to open or reopen the schools to our students. And we have bounced around a whole lot of ideas, considered the connectivity that we have. What we want to talk about today is just the need for this discussion, share with y'all some TA guidance, and then in as much detail as we can provide for you the steps that we've already taken, and then the future things that we need to consider as we begin to make our plans for this coming school year. There's obviously an impact on student achievement that we've had to deal with. We know that students fall behind over the summer, but now they've had almost 3 months plus the summer. So we know that as we plan for August, our plans have to be very aggressive. We cannot depend on homework packets like we've been doing up to this point for a couple of reasons. First, there is just a whole lot of students that are going to be falling behind. And just as important, the new year starts with new learning. Because we stayed home in March, we had covered a whole lot of the curriculum. But at this point, as we plan for August, we know that we can no longer afford to review. It's a whole lot of new learning. And we have to be aggressive as we plan for how we start the school year again. The other consideration is that we have to expect that there will be some disruptions, possibly by a resurgence of the COVID-19 cases. As the temperatures drop in October, November, we could expect a resurgence, and we have to be prepared for it. TA, a few days ago, they provided a whole lot of guidance, and I shared some of the slides with board members. TA was specific. They said, you can't anticipate short-term disruptions in high student absenteeism. So what does that mean? It just means that there's a lot of parents who are not going to be willing to send their students to school in a traditional classroom. So how do we want, or how are we able to minimize the disruptions or future disruptions in student learning? So they asked us to consider adjustments for learning loss as a result of instructional interruptions and come up with a plan that prevents substantial change, but would require immediate board action. So what does this all mean? It means that we have to plan for students being here in a reduced capacity. That means that we would have, for example, students come on an A day, B day. One day they come, another day they don't. So if you're an A day student, that means you would come to school on a Monday, but on a Tuesday, you would very possibly be tuned into the classroom instruction via video. And we have to plan for that. That involves us looking at all types of technology for us to be able to deliver that instruction. We're talking about technology better than the Zoom technology that we're using right now. Managing resources, managing assignments, providing for laptops for students that don't have them, providing for the internet connectivity. It's just a whole lot that we have to consider. They've also asked us to consider a different type of calendar. And there are some options there. So Ms. Aide Garcia will be sharing those. But for now, I'm going to ask Ms. Gomez to just share with some of the specifics that we've been talking about in relation to the committees that we put together. Ms. Gomez, I'll change the slides if you can take it from here.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see the screen, Ms. Gomez?
Yes, sir. It's still the previous slide. There we go. The next slide, please. Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. As Dr. Rios mentioned, the instructional technology part of the plan is already started. So in preparation for the 2020-2021 school year, we do need an instructional platform, something for teachers and students to use that will actually allow them to deliver lessons. Later in the agenda, administration is recommending a contract with Rudy Hernandez from H2 Consultants to facilitate discussions on this online technology platform. We do have a committee that has been created. Two different members from every single campus will serve on this committee, including administration and the curriculum instruction department. The goals of the committee are to review the instructional technology needs for remote classroom learning. So I did speak with Mr. Hernandez. He is part of the MedicSoft team that already helps us with our dashboard. And several conversations, he really needs to identify what is it that the teachers who are out there delivering the lessons, what is it that they need? They're also going to review different platforms that are currently utilized in the district. We have different campuses right now trying several of these platforms that we're actually going to dig into deeper. And I think that's going to provide us a very quick time frame to actually have these conversations, because principals and teachers have been using, like I said, various platforms. We will be reviewing the following, but he's working, I spoke to him this morning, he is working on a couple more, but we do have Blackboard, for instance, Canvas, Office 365, Google Classroom, Skyward. Those for sure are some of the Zoom meetings that we will be having with those consultants so that they can show us what every single platform has to offer. We're also going to review the new adoption. How does the new adoption, the online component that kinder through 8th grade teachers purchased, the district purchased last year for them, how does this play into the lessons that we're anticipating will have to be given to the students via the remote learning? And then we want to review any support systems that teachers can use. For instance, a certain students, if they're going to get speech therapy, for instance, would need a camera, a microphone, those kinds of details. So we want to look at the entire student and the support services that we offer. At the end, this is perhaps a 4 to 5, 6 week program or initiative, Mr. Hernandez with H2C Consultants, he will prepare a summary comparison of the various instructional platforms to include the pros and the cons of each one. He will create an audit of the infrastructure capabilities currently available in the district. He's looking at a network audit, a software audit, and a hardware audit. At the end, he will finalize a report based on the findings, including the committee input for the recommendation. The next slide for your information is provided to give you an idea of who the committee members are. And there are 2 from every campus. The additional plans to support the instructional delivery include, as Dr. Rios mentioned, we need to ensure that every student and teacher has a technology device, something that's capable for the remote learning. They have to be able to launch lessons via links, interact with students on digital platforms, utilize resources for effective instruction. They need to be able to have access to online videos, to online workbooks. We will also ensure that all students have access and connectivity to the internet for remote learning. Discussions have been already held and are currently in the works also to continue working with Spectrum to create a partnership. This would ensure that all homes have the high-speed connectivity that Dr. Rose was referring to earlier. We want to ensure parents and students have access to the actual planning guides. So while the teachers are doing the lessons, we want the parents and the students to know what the 6 weeks looks like. And we will do that through the planning protocol dashboard. Plans are already in place to purchase an additional 300 laptops. And the district has already purchased 100 hotspots. Currently, we do have 25 of those that have been distributed. The district has 7 professional days in the current calendar for staff development. The professional development will be scheduled for all staff to learn the technology platform or platforms that are approved, in addition to any content area needs. Additional support would be provided throughout the year via mini lessons, mini sessions, after school, or on the RTI days. And why is this taking place at this time? It's May. We want to be prepared for August. We want to prepare effective lessons for face-to-face learning or remote learning. We want to prepare teachers in the event of an unexpected school closure. These plans would support that intercession calendar. We want to prepare teachers to provide instruction on the hybrid master schedule. They would come 2 or 3 days, students would come 2 or 3 days a week. The remaining days, they would be remote learning from home. We want to allow students to participate fully in remote learning from home. And we also want to ensure a very supportive professional development plan of action for our staff. As Dr. Rios mentioned earlier, discussions have been conducted already with principals. Some of the bullet points I'm going to touch on, and I'm sure Dr. Rios is going to elaborate in just a bit. But all 3rd and 5th grade teachers will now become self-contained in an effort to decrease the transitions between classes. Campus principals have been instructed to remove all excess furniture from classrooms, including carpets, extra shelves, extra guided reading tables. Plans and schedules are being developed for more frequent disinfecting of classrooms, desks, nurses' stations. Plans and schedules are being developed for receiving students at the campus, all while keeping social distances and best practices. Plans and schedules are being developed for lunch, support services, transitional processes. Materials, sanitizing materials, thermometers, masks, gloves, and other needed supplies have been ordered. And as mentioned earlier, we do have the technology committee, but we've also formed a calendar committee, a master schedule committee, and a curriculum committee. So these conversations are starting now. We need the input of the teachers that have been working the system so that they can tell us what it is that they need. And then the district wants to work through Rudy, Mr. Hernandez, to come up with a plan to present to the school board for approval.
Just a caution before we go to the next slide. Because some teachers have a 4 through 8 generalist position and are working at elementary, they may not be able to be self-contained teachers. But we have plenty of time to work all that out. So we will consider the personnel that we have that are maybe a 4 through 8 generalist and therefore can't be teaching in a 3rd grade classroom, for example, or any other certification needs that arise because of this change in schedule. We also have to consider what it will look like at the 6th grade center to see how we minimize transitions there and possibly consider longer blocks, for example, combining social studies and ELA, for example. But we're not there yet, but we have begun the discussions. So I think that's the next job that HR is prioritizing, to look at all the teacher certificates so we can begin to make some of these decisions and recommendations. Thank you for letting me interrupt, Ida. Please continue. Okay, now we're going to go to the school calendar. Ms. Garcia is going to talk briefly about some of the options that the state has provided. Are you ready, Ms. Garcia?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Dr. Rios, President Mesa, members of the board. A committee has started looking at some of the calendar options with guidance from TA. The first option is a traditional calendar with option for summer learning. This calendar, or this option, would have minimal impact to our current adopted calendar. However, it would not have built-in breaks for a resurgence of COVID-19. This option extends 30 days in the summer, a lot like our summer school. However, House Bill 3 offers additional funding for half ADA for students who participate K through 5th. The calendar, though, must be 180 days of instruction. Our current calendar has only 171 days. These days can be made up by removing some of the RTI days or leave the calendar as is and not apply for that extra funding. Option 2 is the intersessional calendar. The purpose of this targets remediation, acceleration, or enrichment. This calendar provides the option to build longer breaks throughout the year, which provides flexibility if we do have resurgence of COVID-19. The 180 days, though, would be spaced out over the full year with intermittent breaks for targeted remediation, acceleration, or enrichment with a subset of students. Teachers would still work the 187 days. However, it would be during an 11 to 12 month period. And then finally, we have the option 3, which is a full year redesign. This is thinking of the school day totally different. The concept would be rethinking the entire school day to allow different start time, end times, to be able to provide for more teacher planning and student brain breaks or enrichment. Those are the 3 calendar options. So as I mentioned earlier, when the school is not in session, then we have an intersessional break, which includes longer breaks dispersed throughout the year that provide flexibility for remediation, acceleration, or enrichment, and could also make up for some bad makeup weather days. So those. And then finally, we have, again, some of the options that we've been looking at. For our current, of course, we're looking at our calendar, see how we can minimize not so many changes for that one. Then we have the intersessional calendar. We've been looking at Clint ISD. And then for the 9-week calendar, we've been looking at Socorro ISD. We are if we do decide to go to the year round, go to 11, 12 months, then that one would need board approval and determine the new start day. Even though we're a district of innovation, it would still have to go to the DOI committee because the DOI committee agreed only to start 1 week earlier.
Okay. I will, I'll thank you, Ida and Ida. Board President Mesa, members of the board, the idea about sharing the calendar more than anything is to ask the board if they would like to have a workshop that specifically deals with the calendar, because if we were to make certain changes to be ready to anticipate a school closure, we have to act pretty fast. Now, the reality is that we can just stay with the regular calendar, but then we are dependent on everything going well, of having this full-fledged, ready-to-go technology plan with perhaps large investments of money between now and the time that school starts, to make sure that we have the right platforms, the right connectivity, the right devices. Now, we have a pretty aggressive plan to move in that direction to be ready for it. But the reality is that it's a plan in place right now. We haven't actually done it. And because the governor and the commissioner and all the state leaders know that most districts do not have those plans in place right now, they're offering or suggesting that we consider other calendars like the ones that Ms. Garcia discussed. So it's definitely an option to move in that direction. And really, we need the board to just have some discussion on it and see what their thoughts are. We'll definitely keep having some discussion and then visit with the board and possibly ask if there's a need for a workshop to discuss all of this. But we wanted to make sure that y'all started that we started making y'all aware of the possibility. The other things that are very important, incredibly important, is that we talk about school funding. In your desks, next to your computers, we placed a letter that was sent to us from Senator Pete Flores. So it's a letter that looks something like this with a light blue lettering on top. And what the letter in effect says is that that we can expect significant decreases in funding for the next biennium because of reduced taxes, sales taxes, obviously the reduced gas sales, and they're just anticipating a whole lot of reductions. So we're not going to talk necessarily about that today unless the board wants to ask questions about that. But in the next few weeks, as we have a discussion on the budget for next year, I wanted to inform the board that there are certain things that we have done or already put in place to help us be ready for that next school year. So, for example, we're not hiring positions right now that aren't essential until we know, for example, how many students are actually showing up. We have some administrative vacancies. We're only filling a very small percentage of those. We're not hiring teachers until we know how many kids are showing up. We're recommending some reductions in positions just to be ready so that we can take this next school year and be positioned to handle a decreased state aid should that happen. And every indication is that it would happen. I also want to share with the board that that we will not be recommending a pay raise for any administrator, from assistant principals all the way up, and that for teachers and pay grades below that of a teacher, we would be recommending a stipend that would be equivalent to the pay raise. That means that if the board was going to be giving $1,000 pay raise, then that would be a stipend. Why a stipend? Because in the following year, we wouldn't be committed to continue that funding. It'd be a one-time stipend. All because we expect that the funding in the next biennium is going to have a significant decrease. Now, as someone who studies a budget every day, a significant decrease for me is about 20% reduction in funding. I think it's going to be that serious. We're not nobody's going to lose their job. Nobody's going to lose any pay because of this, but we just have to position ourselves in such a way that should that happen, we'd be ready. Now, if that doesn't happen, then the board can turn around a stipend into a pay raise, and then that'll be fine. But hiring freezes, stipends versus pay raises, decreasing the days of some positions, not filling other positions, all of these things are on the table so that we can come up with a specific amount that we would be saving to prepare for the following year. This coming year would be okay because the budget's already in place, but we got to plan now for the following year. And we'll have a lot more discussions about that when we have our next budget workshop. We just didn't want to surprise anybody. We also have to be ready to implement all the Center for Disease Control and state guidelines. I'm just highlighting these two because I think it'll affect the people that will be affected the most will be our elementary teachers. We're used to having departmentalization, so I want to reiterate what Ida said earlier. We're going to self-contained classrooms. That means that if you're currently teaching science right now at the 4th or 5th grade, that means you're going to be teaching reading, math, writing, social studies, science, everything as a 5th grade teacher. We're going to be minimizing transitions. We have to consider eating lunches in the classrooms. That's got to be an option. And how we serve and how we deliver those meals. Transportation, these are all situations that we have to consider. Hopefully by the end of this week, no earlier, no later than next week, we want to launch a parent survey to start asking some questions about how likely are you to send your child if it was the complete 100% attendance. How about if it's 11 students to 1? How about if it's 10 students to 1? Do you have internet connectivity? Is there an adult that could stay home with the child? All of these questions, there's already some samples out there, but we've worked with our teams to come up with questions that are very relevant to us. And hopefully that survey will help inform us on just how ready we have to be for this coming year. We also want to inform all of our parents and our students that we will be prepared for instruction. It's just going to look different. Again, from the self-contained classrooms to the hybrid model where you come one day and then don't come the next. If you want to come every day, then we'll certainly house you, but more than likely not in a traditional classroom on your off days. So these are all discussions that we need to have, but we want to make sure that everybody knows that as difficult as it is, our goal is to be leading the change rather than wait till August and say, okay, the state asked us to do all this and we're not ready for it. Now, we're all hopeful that come August, everything will be normal and everybody will come to school, but we just know in talking to some parents already that they're not willing to send their students to school to be in a classroom at 22 to 1. So we have to be ready. I know it sounds bleak, Mr. Mesa, members of the board, but really our goal is not to sound bleak, but rather to share with our community that we will be ready to provide services for your child. We will be ready if your child chooses to come to school every day to serve them, but it's all going to be different. But we're not going to wait till they tell us. We're going to be ready for it. So having said all that, Mr. Mesa, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and see if there's any questions from yourself or members of the board that we can answer.
Yes, we have questions. Mr. Orfeld?
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. I wrote down different points there, so I'll go through just a couple and then I'll yield and maybe come back. On the committee that's going to look for, the curriculum committee that's going to look for the different learning software platforms, one of the things that you talk about in there is Blackboard and Canvas and some others. the vast majority of the ECHS students would already be using Canvas there because it's what the junior college uses. It's what I use. So there is a percentage that's already using that, and it's a proven piece of software. So I just wanted to put that in and say that I think that would definitely be one to look at. And if there were any questions, I can also help answer any of those because I use it every semester there. Tied to that, digital versions of the book. I know when this all went down and we went to remote learning, for higher ed, the publishers like Pearson and others offered free versions of the book, which helped a bunch of our ECHS kids because some of their books were locked in the lockers because we shut the buildings down. So they were able to access a digital version. And I would imagine that the publishers are probably going to continue doing something along those lines. They're offering a digital version, whether it's free or at a reduced price. And in the event that we see this resurgence again in the fall. On the calendar, I know we said 180 days. There's 171 built into it. I thought everything was based off minutes. Now that's what's confusing me. Is we're saying 180 days. We've only got 171 built in, with the RTI and all that. But I thought everything was minute based because that's always been the conversation in the past. Could you clarify that going towards that? And then I'll just have one other question and I'll yield.
Yeah, yes, sir. They pretty much is all based on minutes. That's just, I think that what Ms. Garcia was aiming at was just about how many days does it take to get to the minutes. Secondary gets to those minutes about a whole week in advance of the elementary, but okay. It's still all about minutes.
Okay. And the last thing, I know you asked the board if they would be interested in either a workshop or talking about calendars, and based on what I've seen from TEA, that ultimately is a board decision that would have to be made to adopt a new calendar. I think personally, I think it's worth taking a very hard look at the different options, because in the end, I'd rather be accused of going in and overreacting there and nothing happening than being caught completely unprepared there. So I'd like to see us get together and take a real hard look at some of those options. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. Is there anyone else? Mr. Contreras?
Yes, I'm basically the same as Mr. Orfeld. That calendar still, I think we need to discuss it a little bit more in detail, just to discuss the options, let alone, maybe more detailed on the resurgence, just in case there is a resurgence in the COVID-19. I mean, that's my biggest concern there.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I have some questions, sir. Through my affiliation with TASB, we're meeting with Commissioner of Education Mike Morath monthly, and I don't think he paints a bleak picture. I think he does a better job of doing that. The saying is that it's going to be possibly 2 or 3 years in, and he cautioned every director, be careful with the races that you give, and I think this is a better way of doing it by providing a stipend, because in reality, we know that the funding sources are going to be affected. Many funding sources are going to be affected, and so we don't know what the funding will be. But my question, I have three questions. Maybe 2 questions, 1 comment. The first one being special needs, because I haven't heard much. I've heard about the normal student, but the one with special needs, starting with bilingual education, special ed, services like physical therapy, speech, and there's so many services that are provided to those students in need. that needs to be really worked out where our students are going to be getting the benefits from the personnel providing those services. And I know that sometimes we have those services provided from the region. So everything has to be in collaboration and participation with all the students that are involved, all the staff that is involved. That being the first question. Second question is, I know that it's a comment. Commissioner Morat worked with so many things in regard to COVID-19 and has provided some excellent resources that I hope that when the teachers are trained, those resources are going to be available for our students as well. It's a website that TA has developed for COVID-19 with so many different resources and above and beyond the classroom.
Yes, sir.
I hope that teachers will be familiarized with the sources, the resources that are out there when they have that training. And then I think my last one has to do with I don't know, I know you have your conversations with Superintendent, with Commissioner Morat, but he detailed the calendar and you know, this fear of the unknown of how many students will show up. I know that through my conversations, my wife is in there, through my conversations with my wife, she says that a lot of parents are ready to send them back, but yet a lot of times they don't have, you know, the daycare or able to provide, you know, for expensive daycare as it is, and we don't even know if those daycare will be open. But by the same token, I hear the fears from the parents that we have to have so many things in place, and this is why. And I'm glad that Mr. Overfelt mentioned that it is a topic of great importance to all of us to be able to have long discussions about having everything in place to assure the parents that it's a safe place to come. So, you know, everything from, I don't know, if we have the capacity for the ultraviolet, you know, disinfecting, all the resources necessary to provide a safe environment.
So if I may address your first question, Mr. Mesa, earlier today, Ms. Gomez shared with us the availability of some funds for some resources. So for example, the laptops that we're buying right now, just to get a head start on it, those are regular laptops. They have microphone, they have a speaker, but for our special needs students, they need more specific microphones so that they can talk into it and listen to it. Or probably for our bilingual students, or special education students maybe need a laptop that has a lot more speed so it can handle a lot more of the programs to really meet the needs that they have. So she will be addressing those purchases very soon. We're also asking the board to approve a change in pay scale for some speech language pathologists, because a lot of the services that weren't provided, we're going to have to catch up with them through compensatory services. But we can't compete with the private market that's paying, for example, the speech language pathologists a lot more money. So they have the option to go work somewhere else in the summer. And we want to try to compete with that pay. So we're asking the board to pay more so that we can, in fact, start catching up on some of those services. That's what we're doing. Those are some of the things that we're doing right now to try to be ready, because we are behind on some of those services. We've already started some of them. The truth is that we're behind because we haven't had the technology in place and because of the social distancing required. But we think that with the aggressive plan that we'll have, we can absolutely begin to catch up. Your last question about the disinfecting, we've already started to purchase. Right now we have shared disinfecting machines that we were taking around the campuses. we're looking to buy a minimum of 1 per campus, 2 to 3 for the larger campuses, so that we can have all these practices in place. So we are taking steps. We just have to compete with everybody else who's also taking steps because everything is on back order. But we're hopeful that we trust that by August we'll have everything in place. That's another reason why starting summer school now would be irresponsible, because we're not ready for all of that. So we would rather continue with the services that we have right now. If there's any part of your question that I didn't capture, please remind me and I'll mention it, Mr. Mesa.
So I just want to make sure that the resources that Commissioner Morath has established, the TA, that those are communicated with the staff coming in for training. Those are above and beyond.
Yes, sir. And I know that Commissioner Morath is not listening to our board meeting, but having been in the business for however many years, 30 years for me, 32 years, and I'm sure for you more, I really am, the administrators and superintendents really are impressed with just how hands-on he's been. It's just, TA has really been supportive in all this, so we're thankful for that.
Listen, thank you. I yield to anyone else. Follow-up question, Camila Gonzalez.
Am I unmuted? Yeah. I'm asking about the instructional delivery. You mentioned the laptops that you're buying, 300 of them. I know that you were giving learning centers right now. Have they been picked up? You were making some available to laptops to students. How's
Yes.
that, and also the hotspots, are they using them?
Man, we have the laptops have been real easy going out. We've had most of them picked up. They continue to call students who haven't picked them up. Now, obviously, now the school year is almost over, but they had asked for one, or the school had indicated they needed one, and there are some that were not picked up. Okay, and they've continued trying to make contact with the students. The hotspots, we have given a lot of them out, but those we have available if anyone needs them. What that tells me is that the higher need is not the connectivity, but it's the actual device. Parents might have a device at home, but it's a device that's being shared among, mom and dad and 3 kids. So if you have 3 kids at home and they're all trying to do homework, if one device isn't enough. Plus we have a lot of parents working from home. My educated guess is that probably there's a whole lot of connectivity at home, probably not enough devices. So I'm looking for the survey response that'll kind of clear a lot of that for us. But anyway, long answer to your questions. Devices are picked up, hotspots not so much.
So how do you, who are you going to give the devices to? Diana just goes in and asks for it and you give it to her?
No, ma'am. This year we prioritized the issuing of the devices based on the students with the highest need. We began with iPads, for example, for the bilingual students that needed them. And then we issued the laptops. A lot were issued at the campuses on students that they knew didn't have them. Now, moving forward, we have to have a whole lot of discussion about how are we going to do the distribution, because we don't have an answer yet. As a matter of fact, we know we're going to need a lot more than the 300 devices, but because we know that things are on back order, we wanted to just get a head start. We know we're going to need a lot more than 300. That's just the reality. How exactly we're going to prioritize distributing them, we don't have that answer yet. Our hope would be that we would have at least 1 per student. And where there's a household of 3 kids, maybe 2 per the household, until we can get enough to go around.
Are you getting grants for this or just coming out of a budget?
A lot of it, we have different funding sources. So for example, we have the money that we're allowed to use for technology and textbooks, and we just have to decide how much we're using in textbooks and how much we're going to use in technology. So we have that fund from the government. Then we have local budgets also. And then the state is making is is providing different grants for us to apply. None of them have been geared towards technology, but that doesn't mean that we can't use those funds to purchase some technology. I'll give you an example. We're about to submit a request to be refunded for expenses that we used during this pandemic. The extra duty pay that we've provided, for example, some of the items that we bought, like the hotspots, like the laptops, some of the disinfecting material, just everything related, we've been coding it, and we're hoping to get a substantial amount of money refunded to us. That money is being refunded to us, and we know that we're already within our budget. So hopefully we can use some of those funds that are going to be refunded to us to buy more hardware, more laptops. So there's a combination of direct funding and then some funding that is just available to us and that we can use at our discretion. And then, yes, there is local funds as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Anyone else? Ms. Webb?
I have a few comments. Number one, Mr. Oberfeld mentioned Canvas. How many of our district employees are trained using Canvas? Because what I've heard from several employees is that they are not comfortable using Google Classroom, but how many of them are trained on Canvas and do we have it available to every employee?
No, ma'am, we don't have Canvas available to a whole lot of employees. We don't have Google Classrooms available, and we don't have Blackboard available. Because of the junior college and because of Angelo State, there are some platforms. That's why we're having this discussion that's going to be facilitated by Mr. Hernandez. One, so that we can just see what teachers need, and two, what they would be more comfortable using. But we don't have a significant amount of teachers using any one to say this is the way to go. We have a whole lot of people that are very savvy and have on their own explored different avenues, but we don't have a significant amount that's using them. That's why we have to have these committees and be able to make the best decision.
And then my other comment, I would like to have some more training on the different workshops and the different types of calendars that are out there. And also, if we're looking at an alternate A and B day, have we considered, or are we considering those students that are now in CTE that do a lot of hands-on, like wood shop and electrical, things like that? Have we taken that into account as well? And then another area, when we mentioned the special needs, the special ed students, the bilingual students that Mr. Mesa mentioned, do we have to include something in their IEPs regarding some of these online classes as well for them? Just to make sure that all the bases are covered. And then the last question I have, how is all of this, and hopefully it doesn't go into play, but if it does, how will all of this impact athletics and UIL activities?
Okay. All right, so let me answer some of the questions. You know, the reality is that we don't have everything in place right now. Now, we did talk about how we will reshape the curriculum, because if we know that every other day you're going to be at school, then we have to work with the teachers to know that, okay, if the child is going to be here on a Monday, but not on a Tuesday, then we have to do those hands-on activities on a Monday when they are here, and then the Tuesday have a different type of instruction going on that's more theoretical. So we've had that discussion. We've had the discussion about, you know, how do we focus on what's essential for all of our curriculums, because it is going to be different, and we have to figure out how we prioritize. So all of that, we plan to have the discussions. To say that we've had them already would be misleading, and we certainly don't want to do that. In terms of the IEPs, yes, Dr. Aguirre is constantly keeping up with the updates, and there's a whole lot of ARDs going on, and there will certainly be plans for a lot more going on as we figure out how the day is going to look. And then on the athletics and how it's going to affect it, you know, we're waiting for guidance from the state. But I can tell you, as a superintendent, I can tell you, and I hate that I have to tell you, but I really don't see how it would be responsible to have any type of contact sports for the coming year. I hate it for our kids that are juniors right now that are going to be seniors, and we're looking, you know, to play basketball or play football. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm saying that I am very uncomfortable even considering it. And if somebody tells me that we have to have a football season, well, then we'll have that discussion. But if it was left up to administration to make a recommendation, I wouldn't be recommending any type of travel, because then that means that we have to put kids on a bus to travel out of town. It means that we're going to come in physical contact with other students, and I don't see us being there in August. We'll wait for some kind of guidance, but already I can tell you that if somebody was to ask me, I'd say absolutely not. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend any kind of contact. I wouldn't recommend any type of travel. I wouldn't, you know, UIL academics, think of our middle school kids that go out of town and we put 4 kids to a room in a hotel. We have to get a group of individuals to think, you know, how we restructure all of our activities here. I'm not comfortable having 40 kids in a weight room. So how do we have our physical activity both at the elementary level and at the secondary level where there is no contact? You know, how do we make our PE classes smaller so that kids are running 6 feet apart? So the kids are having shooting drills and dribbling drills 6 feet apart. We have to have all those discussions, but right now, I just don't see any type of contact sports happening. To answer your question, Ms. Webb.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Are there any others? Then we'll move on with the agenda. Next item that we have is the consent agenda. Thank you, Dr. Rios. No action will approve all items on the consent agenda. There are minutes from the April regular board meeting. There are also some donations that will be posted on our website, and we will not read all the donations. If there's any item that either you have a question or that we can set aside and vote on it separate, please let me know. At this time, again, Dr. Rios.
Just, Mr. Messer, before we move forward, I do want to ask, I believe it was Ms. Gomez, there's a couple of changes, not in what we're buying, but in how we're funding them. And Ms. Gomez or Ms. Childress, I don't recall exactly if these were on the consent agenda or if these are individual items that are later on in the regular agenda. Will you remind me of that?
Yes, Dr. Rios. F6. These are the Apple laptops we are buying for the iMac computers for CTE. The memo is correct. We are using state funds. The agenda, however, shows that we are using Fund GT state funds. The actual memo with the recommendation is correct, but it's not GT funds, it is CTE state comp funds.
There was a second item, Ms. Gomez. Is that on consent or is that on the regular agenda?
It's on the regular agenda, sir, under curriculum and instruction.
Okay, so this is the only item that needed to be corrected?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. We're ready, Mr. Mesa.
Were there any questions or any item needs to be pulled out for further explanation or questions? None, hearing none, then I will entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Mrs. Webb, all those in favor? Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez, in favor, Amy Hayes, in favor, Mrs. Webb, and Mr. Overfield. It's unanimous. Motion's approved. As always, I want to thank all the individuals and different businesses that donated to our district. We appreciate everything you do for us. Again, the donations will be posted on the website. At this time, We will go now to administration. First item that we have is 10A. Consideration to approve the nomination of San Felipe CISD Board President Raymond P. Mesa to fill the Region 15 seat on the TASB Board of Directors. I'm up for re-elections, basically what it is. This will be my third term. We have 3-year terms. I've been there since 2014. I'll turn it over to Sandra Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Dr. Rios and members of the board, as Mr. Mesa has mentioned, he has submitted his nomination for the Region 15 seat on the TASB Board of Directors. The duties of the TASB Director is to represent his or her region at the TASB Board of Directors. They direct affairs of TASB in accordance with the Articles of Incorporation, bylaws, and an advocacy agenda. The TASB Director Representative also ensures that the association fulfills its mission to provide visionary leadership and advocacy for high-quality services to its members. The first step, as Mr. Mesa has mentioned, is he has submitted his nomination. The next step is for the board to approve his nomination, which will then be submitted to TASB and other region, other persons, members of the board of within Region 15 are also eligible to apply or be nominated. At this time, the first step is to ask the board to accept his nomination.
Okay, I'm going to poll Mr. Contreras in favor. Myself, of course, Diana Gonzalez in favor. Amy Haynes in favor. Mrs. Webb in favor. Mr. Orfeld. Thank you so much. And I just want to say this, that I've always had members that run, I ran against the incumbent. The second one, we had 2 applicants besides myself. We go through an interview process, and again, you interview for about 20 minutes, and then they take a vote, and then they select a person. So I've been there for, again, 6 years, and it's the same process again. If there's a candidate that files against me, I go through an interview process again. And if I get the endorsements from over 50% of the districts that are in Region 15, then automatically I'm in without an interview. It's hard to do, to get all the, what do you call it, Sandra, the exact word?
So those endorsements is
Endorsements.
yes.
If you get over 50% of the endorsements, you don't have to interview. But being that the Region 15 is so sparsely, there are districts that so far away. Coleman is a terrible distance away from Del Rio. I would like to visit all regions, all districts in Region 15, because of so much mileage in between the districts. And that's one of the reasons that they do not attend, for example, the grassroots meetings, because Texas is a big state, and Region 15 is a big area. But I'm glad to serve, and I'm willing to serve another 3 years. So thank you, Sandra. I really want to thank you for doing that work.
Absolutely, sir. And we will reach out to the other superintendents and school boards to announce your formal nomination.
Thank you so much. Thank you, board. Thank you, everyone. Next item is 10B, consideration to approve the proposed resolution for the 2020-2022 TASB advocacy agenda. Sandra Hernandez.
Thank you once again, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. TASB annually calls upon districts to submit a new advocacy resolution or advocacy resolutions that will help form TASB's responses to issues before the Texas legislature and other governmental entities during the next legislative session. Our district may submit a proposal for a new resolution or we may amend a resolution adopted by a previous delegate assembly. The proposal and the rationale for the proposed resolution must be approved by our board prior to its submission to TASB's governmental relations. And I believe at this time, Ms. Gonzalez is going to sponsor nominate a resolution, and I will pass this to Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. The proposed resolution that I have is for TASB to advocate for legislation that will suspend the current APF accountability rating system until 2022. The reasons. First reason, given the impact of COVID-19, Governor Abbott used his statutory authority to suspend annual academic assessment requirements for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year. Number two, the suspension of the state assessments prevents insufficient data to fairly measure and determine loss or gains in student achievement, school progress, and a clear distinction of achievement gaps between various groups. Here's number three, the suspension of the A2F accountability rating system for 2 years would allow the state sufficient time to collect sequential data to better determine the school district's true accountability rating. That's it. Those are my reasons.
Thank you. And at this time, the board may share or comment on this resolution.
You have on your board book, it's on 89, I believe. And any questions at this time? No questions?
I think it's a good proposition.
So it's time to call for a question. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Amy Hayes. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez. In favor, Amy Hayes. In favor, Mrs. Webb. In favor, Mr. Orfeld. Resolution's approved. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you so much, sir, and this will be submitted to TASB's.
Thank you very much. I just want to mention that there will be others. I've heard of a very important one that TASB is working on. They sent a direct message to Texas Education Agency in the funding area, and that's the funding is going to be cut. That it be first charter schools and school vouchers and family savings or whatever it's called, but they start with that first and not hit the public schools the same way. That being said, I'll move on. Next item that we have is item C, 10C, discussion regarding alternative plans for a graduation ceremony for the class of 2020. Dr. Rios?
Yes, Mr. Mesa, members of the board, we want to do a couple of things with this item. First, I want to just share with the board that we held 3 different group discussions that the principals of 3 high schools organized for us, and we shared the results of the survey again, and then we asked for comments, and I wanted to share that the students and their parents were clear. They indicated that yes, they understood that the first choice was to suspend graduation or decisions about graduation until they could have a more traditional graduation. But it's clear to them that they can't have their first choice in the foreseeable future. Therefore, they were clear in indicating that they wanted their second choice implemented, which was to have a small graduation at Walter Leverman Stadium, 100 students at a time, 2 parents in the stands, but have a graduation. After hearing just the overwhelming clarity from everybody, we're now ready to share with the board what we intend to do for graduation. Now, I want to be clear that when we first talked about this, I was very concerned because It's just a whole lot of movement, and it would in fact be the biggest activity or public activity that had happened. But in discussing with the students and the parents, it became very clear that we could have a very controlled graduation, maintain 6 feet apart throughout the arrival ceremony, dismissal process, and Dr. Perez is going to share with us a plan here in a couple of minutes about what how the plan would look like. Now, before I turn it over to Dr. Perez, I am first going to share something else that we prepared for our students, our graduates, and make it official and invite them to come and use these backdrops as much as possible. So if you will allow me to do the first part, Dr. Perez, then I'll ask you to continue with your presentation. Let me show the screen here first.
Of course.
Here in our back patio, we worked with Aide Garcia and Mr. Peter Ojeda to create something that our students would remember. So we picked up the garden, we created a backdrop for them, invited some kids to come and take pictures with their parents so we could have something to share with the board. And it's nice, it's very nice. So I hope that the seniors will take turns. We'll definitely monitor to make sure that there isn't a whole lot of people using it at the same time. But we will have this available beginning tomorrow for the class of 2020. So hopefully the weather will collaborate with us so that students can show up and take their selfies or bring somebody to take pictures with mom and dad or themselves. But it's definitely been a difficult time for everybody. We wanted to make it a little nicer for them. We also ordered a medal for each one that you saw a big backdrop there in the middle. I know it went kind of fast. We'll load it here on Facebook right after the meeting. And anyway, that big round medallion looking thing that's on the wall, that's an actual medal that's going to accompany every diploma that students receive on graduation day. With that said, I will ask Dr. Perez to continue with the presentation. Dr. Perez, I will be working the controls for you here. So if you'll just indicate for me when you want me to change the slide, unless I change it beforehand, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mesa, board members, and Dr. Rios. The following is a short presentation of the alternate graduation plans that have been discussed with the board, with Dr. Rios, and with a group of students and their parents. So what we're looking at here is a graduation that'll take place over 3 days, which would be June 4th, 5th, and 6th. Students have indicated that they do want a regular graduation as close as possible to what would have mimicked a normal graduation. And this would be at the Walter Leverman Stadium. The issue here is that we still have the social distancing, so we would divide the graduates into 6 different groups of approximately 100 students each. So that would indicate to us that we would need 2 ceremonies per day. To avoid the heat as much as possible, we would have a ceremony at 9 in the morning and another one at 8 in the evening. So what's involved here is that we don't have enough space, enough seats to accommodate all of the parents and all of the guests. So we would give every senior
the 2 tickets to be able to allow 2 guests into the graduation ceremony. We would also structure the parking lot at the student parking lot at Del Rio High School. Each parking space is numbered, and so we would go ahead and utilize the first 100 slots to be able to allow 1 car per graduate and his or her 2 guests. The seating on the field would also be assigned, taking into consideration also the 6 feet that they need to be separate from each other. And even though this is not required, it is encouraged that everyone wear a mask during the ceremony. Normally, after graduation, some congregating is allowed, and this would not be possible after the ceremony. So seniors will be dismissed in single file right after the ceremony, which I'm thinking might take about an hour and a half, since it's a very small group compared to what we normally have. So we're asking for the guests, the 2 guests and the seniors, to arrive in 1 vehicle half hour before the event, so that we can have a structured entrance, make sure that everything is 6 feet apart. Unfortunately, there will be no concession stands during the 2 events, and the students will be assigned seats on the field in alphabetical order. And so we looked at possibly having assigned spaces and seating at the bleachers and on the field, but we're still looking at that to make sure that that's actually going to happen. And visiting the stadium today, we don't think that's going to be possible because we don't have all the bleachers numbered. Nonetheless, a labeled map of the parking lot, the graduate seating, and the stadium seats will be emailed to seniors so that people are not confused during the event. So the social distancing rules again apply from the moment that people start showing up at the parking lot. Seniors must already be prepared to walk into the stadium and down onto the field. We will go ahead and play the pomps and circumstance, and as they're walking down the stadium to the field to their assigned seat. As customary, the valedictorian, the salutatorian of both Del Rio High School and Early College High School will have their speeches, and we will also have the regular invocation and benedictions from some of the top 5 students from both campuses. And Zoom meetings will be used to prepare the students to give them these instructions, along with emails indicating the maps and the parking details.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Mr. Messer, are there any questions from yourself or the board members?
Sure we do, sir. I'll open up with Mr. Contreras. Questions?
Yes, sir. First of all, are they going to be streaming the graduation for the parents or family members that could not attend?
Yes, sir. 2 things. One, we will stream every presentation, every graduation, and then at the end, Mr. Luna and his staff will put together one video of all the graduates, because they're going to be in alphabetical order. At the point, they'll put all 6 presentations of diplomas together, so it appears to be one continuous video for them to memorialize for themselves.
And then, so then we're going to have security guards that all around, from the parking space, from the parking lot to the procession as they walk in throughout, just in case, because I was one of those that after the thing, I ran to the bell. So obviously that's not going to happen.
Yes, sir. It is going to be very structured. Like I said, for example, the 9 o'clock ceremony, we'll ask everybody to arrive starting at 8:30. At 9 o'clock, we'll close the gate. Everybody has to remain in their car. There'll be plenty of security there. Then we'll start displacing the parents, the first 20 parents, then the next 20. We think that they very quickly go to their assigned seat. Once they're in, then the graduates will, by their parking space, they will already be lined up. So they come out of their car and they march from their car onto the field. So that's very organized. There'll be security both in the bleachers and as kids are walking in helping us. The county has offered to provide additional manpower just to help supervise everything. There's a lot of people interested in helping with additional security and supervision. So we're confident that we can have it very structured and still very enjoyable and memorable for students.
Questions? Thank you, Rodriguez.
I just have one more question. Do we have a plan B just in case it rains within within that period?
Yes, sir. Because of the situation, because of the groups are so small, we wanted to do it within the first weekend in June, so that if we needed to have a makeup session for one or more of the sessions, then we could the following weekend. One thing that we didn't mention in the presentation is that we know 6 graduations are a lot. So obviously board members are invited to all 6, but we hope that there will be at least one board member present per session. So you might pick the session that one of your family members are graduating, or just one that your calendar provides for. So.
Any other question? Mr. Orfeld?
Thank you, sir. Are we going to be allowed, because I know reading TEA stuff, are we going to be allowed to hand diplomas, or are they going to walk up and pick it up off a table?
I would strongly discourage handing out diplomas unless, and I really, I hate to pick on him, but I think that at this point, Mr. Contreras is the only one that has an actual child. So I would just encourage everybody. We are going to see if we can just, in lieu of all that, provide for a 1-minute comment from board members at graduation. We've never had that, but I think that because it just isn't going to be that interaction, I think that we're going to put the diploma on a table, have the student receive the diploma, turn around, and take the picture by themselves. So because of that, we're going to try to have an area for the board member that shows up to talk, because we're entirely discouraging handing diplomas. Okay. And I just hope that everybody plays along.
Oh yeah, no, totally understand. And I'm glad that Valverde County Sheriff's Department has reached out, because yeah, I think we will need more manpower than just what District PD has. And even though I know it's not what they wanted, ultimately, there I am glad that we are going to offer something so that mom and dad, or whoever the 2 ticket holders, get to go in and be able to see their child culminate their public education across that stage there, however different it may be. At least it's going to go in and happen. So I'm glad we're able to at least do that. Thank you.
I'll ask a question. I'll have Amy ask her question first. Amy?
Mr. Mesa, just a quick question. Will we still be doing health screenings? Everybody comes in, are we going to do that as well?
Yes, ma'am. There will be some type of screening as the students are walking towards the entrance of the procession. Now, we will in advance ask parents to screen their children, so that when they show up, somebody coughs in front of us, that's going to be time to send somebody home. So it's our hope that parents will screen their kids to make sure that everybody can continue with it. But we'll definitely be having a screening throughout. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I have a question or two. Is there any way possible that it could be held indoors?
I don't believe, Mr. Mesa, that having the graduation indoors would allow us to keep people 6 feet apart. The stadium, I'm sorry, the gym floor is not big enough, and the only other option to consider would be to see about the Civic Center, but that would not be the traditional graduation that, or at least getting as close to it. It would be an option to have the graduates sit with their parents, and then they walk in, but that would have to be elsewhere and not on a school property. We don't have a place big enough.
And the reason I ask that is this global warming is real. Tomorrow it's expected to be like 106, 107. By the time 8 o'clock gets around, you're still in the 90s. And so it's hard. The other question I had is, will there be a photographer?
Yes, sir. There will be a photographer at every session. Absolutely. For when we hand the diplomas, they'll be, yes.
Okay. I yield to any other questions, board members? Anyone else? I think we're done, sir.
All right. We'll ask Mr. Luna and the staff to post that video. And again, we did that backdrop here in our back patio. It'll be available from now until probably the end of June. So we encourage students to take your time, come with your caps and gowns. We'll also have supervision back there to make sure it's one at a time and everything will be done safe. But it's really nice. We encourage maybe board members at break if you want to go down there and look at it. Thank you, and thank you to the principals for working to put this together.
Yes, Mr. Overholt has another question.
Just one last thing that I thought of. I know that normally we have the high school and elementary principals that were down there. Are they going to be able to be included if they want, or will they, because of social distancing, unfortunately not be able to participate this year?
No, sir. We've already told all the other principals that one of the requirements was that we minimize personnel in the graduation. So we've already told them that they cannot be part of it, and they understood. Okay. We've already shared that with them.
Okay, thank you.
And I think my initial concern was, some of us are over 60, and so with no wearing mask, and it's difficult for graduates to wear a mask because it's their day and they've earned their diploma, and if they take a pictures and be, with the mask on. So I see that, but if they pick up their diploma, we're at a safe distance away from graduates.
Yes, sir.
That's great. I want to thank everyone involved, and there's still work to be done. Dr. Perez, you look sharp, by the way. There's a lot of preparation that goes into place, so we'll work out the details in regard to what board members will be attending what sessions and so forth. Thank you. Thank you, sir. This time we'll move on with item 11A, curriculum instruction. Consideration of approved disposal of instructional materials that are no longer applicable for district implementation or valuable to our schools, our district, or our state. Ida Gomez.
Thank you, Board President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Tonight we come for consideration for approval to dispose of the instructional materials that are no longer applicable for district implementation. They have no value to our schools, our district, or the state. Currently, we have 95 pallets of instructional materials that have been picked up over the last year. These materials are classified as materials of no value. They are no longer in adoption. These are consumable workbooks. Some are written on, some are not. nothing that the district that meets district compliance. The teaks are outdated, and we also included some sample materials that the district was able to review but did not purchase. We did not adopt it. We currently have 73 pallets of textbook material at the warehouse and another 22 at the district warehouse. One is the textbook warehouse and one is the district. In September of 2011, all instructional material per state guidelines in the district inventory became district property. Districts are required to maintain an accurate inventory and must complete the TEX-012 inventory adjustment to report state adopted materials that are lost, damaged, destroyed, or sold. At that point, TA takes it off of our inventory and gets us a new inventory each year. However, for materials that are in value, that no longer have value, I should say, districts are not required to report the loss or the sale of the non-adopted materials, including the out-of-adoption materials or materials that were purchased through the disbursement process. Now, we did include about 14 pages of the actual titles, the grade levels, Spanish, English adoption. Some of these date back to 2006. We are lacking storage. You know, now that Wagon Wheel is no longer our facility, it is holding the pallets at this time, but we also have some at the warehouse. So the memo in your packet, this is the memo Dr. Rios was referring to earlier, indicates that there's a company that would have picked it up for $399.60. Since the time that we contacted them, they did contact us back. They are willing to pick up the pallets for free. And I do have a revised memo at your seats that indicates no cost. So they'd be willing to pick up the 95 pallets at no cost to the district. We just need the board approval for them to do that. Are there any questions?
Questions for board members? We do this every year. Hearing no questions? No questions, the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve superior text to collect and dispose of the instructional materials that are no longer applicable for district implementation or valuable to our schools, district, or state.
You want to add at no cost?
At no cost, yes, sir. Thank you for that. At no cost to the district.
$399 that we say. Okay, I'll call for a motion. You've heard the recommendation. Motion by Mr. Contreras. Is there a second? Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Mrs. Webb in favor, and Mr. Oka in favor. Unanimous. This motion is approved.
Thank you.
Go on to item 12, technology and operations. Consideration to approve a resolution regarding hazardous traffic conditions. Says Henge.
Evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. The Texas Education Agency Handbook on School Transportation Allotments requires the board to adopt language providing the definition of hazardous traffic conditions applicable to the district and identifying the specific hazardous areas for which such funding is requested. The location for which are hazardous traffic conditions falls within a 2-mile radius of the campus, or the campuses rather. And these are areas that currently have minimal sidewalks or have no current sidewalks. The supporting document for this is found on Exhibit B, where our transportation department has gone through and taken a survey to identify the designated hazardous areas that we brought before the board in the past. Those areas have not changed. However, the affected schools and attendance zones, our previous resolution did not include Early College or North Heights. So this resolution here updates that document to provide those locations. primarily North Heights Elementary from Veterans, and Early College High School from West Can 2, Early College from Kingsway Boulevard, and Blended Academy for Garfield Avenue, Las Vacas, and Business 20 or 277. So in short, these campuses within a 2-mile radius we would be able to receive funding for moving forward because of them being identified as hazardous areas. Are there any questions?
Questions from board members? Mr. Contreras?
Thank you. So do we have a set amount for what's allocated to those, if I understand correctly, for that area? And then if we can go into a joint venture with the city and the county to maybe expand on something, especially along and it's always been a concern even when I was at the city council, the area there with Fermin Calderon and going through, walking all the way to Sonic and that area with crossing the bridge and McDonald's.
Mr. Mesa, a couple of things have been attempted in the past. One of them is because of the railroad in that area, there's been the availability to apply for grants for students to go across that area. That obviously hasn't been funded. There's also been grants that we've applied for to help provide a sidewalk from Del Rio Middle School to the Sonic area. Those have also not come to fruition. We can explore, see if what entities wanted to do a joint venture with local funds to do that. We can certainly look at possibility, and I'm sure that we can very inexpensively come up with a cost of it. I don't know that anybody else would be willing to share from their local funds, but we can certainly ask somebody based on the linear feet and the width of a sidewalk, how much it will cost, and bring that back so that we can have more discussion on that.
Just wanted to add, Mr. Contreras, with these trying times, I think everyone is going to kind of trim their budget on projects of that nature. And all we're trying to do is designate this is a high hazardous traffic area. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other question? There being none, the recommendation from the administration.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution regarding hazardous traffic conditions as presented.
So this will be the two areas, all streets and blocks along US Highway 90 and south of the railroad tracks. The blocks along Veterans Boulevard is Highway 90 or Highway 277 North, US Highway 277 South, and Business 277 and State Loop 239. You will be adding those.
Oh, those are the current ones, and we've outlined them on Exhibit B as well. The locations haven't changed. We just didn't have the the two campuses on prior to this. Early College and North Heights.
Okay. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Mrs. Webb in favor, and Mr. Overfelt. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
It passed unanimously with 6 votes in the affirmative. There's 1 board member absent. Going to business and finance, item 13A. Consideration to approve the 2020 Summer Food Service Program, SFSP application. Amy Childress and Mr. Perales. Amy.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Administration would like to request Consideration and approval of the 2020 Summer Food Service Program application. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission requires the operation of the Summer Food Service Program by school districts in which 50% or more of the area children are eligible for free or reduced priced meals in the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program during the regular school year. Since more than 50% of our district students are eligible for free or reduced meals during the school year, we are mandated by law to participate in the 2020 Summer Food Service Program. At this time, TDA, under their COVID emergency plan, is allowing us to continue operating through June 30th at, uh, at the 31 sites that we are currently serving our meals at. We have not received any guidance yet if that will be extended into July. We will update the board as we receive more information from TDA.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Seeing none, the recommendation from administration, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Summer Food Service Program application.
Got the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Mrs. Webb and Mr. Contreras. Mrs. Webb made the motion. Mr. Contreras make the second. All those in favor, please indicate by, well, first of all, with Mr. Contreras in favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Linda Webb in favor, Mr. Webb, Mr. Overfeld. In favor. It's unanimous. 6 in favor. Again, we have 1 board member absent. Thank you very much. Amy. Next item we have is Human Resources, item 14A. Consideration to approve the employee job descriptions and evaluation forms for the following. A, DFF, update. Help desk technician, update. Felipe Garcia.
Yes, good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Tonight, we request your consideration to approve the job description for deaf education aide, desk technician, help desk technician. These 2 job descriptions were not properly classified. They were classified under exempt, and they do not meet the exempt status. Therefore, we want to correct these job descriptions. Is there any questions?
Questions? That's the only item that is I see in red. So
Yes,
now,
sir.
any questions? For being none, the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the job descriptions and evaluation forms as discussed.
That's the recommendation from the administration. Is there a motion for approval? Amy Haynes, seconded by Mr. Oldfeld. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Mrs. Webb in favor, Mr. Oldfeld. Okay, unanimous. 6 affirmative. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Go to item 14B, consideration to approve updates to the 2019-2020 district compensation plan. Felipe Garcia.
Yes, sir. In your packet, you will find a couple of changes that we're requesting for approval for our compensation pay plan. The first one is under the teacher stipend schedule, and it indicates changing some or paying some rates for our speech language pathologist, educational diagnostician, and licensed specialist in school psychology. This is through a grant. Last year, this grant was provided to our district to pay these individuals for the high number of referrals that we were getting, and the grant was extended to this year, so we're including that additional stipend. And then the other stipend is under summer school rates. As Dr. Rios mentioned earlier in the presentation, our rates that we were paying our speech language pathologists and speech language pathologist assistants are not up to market. and we were not having individuals apply for these positions during summer. And now that there's going to be compensatory services that need to be provided, we need to make sure that we have people available. So we're requesting for $60 for the speech language pathologist and then $40 for the speech language pathologist assistants. Any questions on these two items?
Questions from board members? So we got this information on the update. Let's see the changes there. These are highlighted in blue, by the way. No questions, and administration, would you read the recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve updates to the 2019-2020 district compensation pay plan as presented.
You've heard the recommendation from the administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Diana Gonzalez made the motion, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Mr. Contreras? In favor. Myself in favor. Diana Gonzalez in favor. Amy Haynes in favor. Mr. Webb in favor. And Mr. Overflow. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
It's affirmative vote. Thank you very much. Ms. Garcia, Student Services. 15A, consideration to approve the submission of an application and attestation to the Texas Education Agency for missed school day waiver. Amy Childress, Michelle Smith. Amy.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. On March 13th, 2020, Governor Abbott declared a state of disaster due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 14th, 2020, an emergency school board meeting was convened where administration recommended and the board approved the decision for our district to transition to a home-based instructional model in lieu of returning to campus upon the conclusion of spring break. On April 17th, 2020, Governor Abbott announced that public and private classrooms would remain closed for the remainder of the school year to avoid quickening the spread of COVID-19. If a district has closed due to COVID-19, TEA will provide missed school day waivers for all closed days with the requirement that the district provide educational supports for the off-campus education of all students. The waivers will be granted as long as the district commits to supporting students instructionally while absent from school grounds. Administration is requesting permission to apply for the district-wide missed school days waiver and submit with the waiver application the instructional continuity attestation while closed. The missed school days waiver would encompass the following dates: March 16th, 2020 through April 9th, 2020, April 14th, 2020 through May 22nd, 2020, and May 26th through May 29th of 2020.
Question from board members? No questions asked. Recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the application and the instructional continuity attestation to TEA for the district-wide missed school days waiver.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Mr. Contreras? In favor. Myself in favor. Diana Gonzalez in favor. Amy Haynes in favor. Mrs. Webb in favor. Mr. Orfeld in favor. Unanimous is approved.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. The time is 7:54 p.m. We are now going into executive session permitted by the sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084, and 551.087 of the Government Code Texas Open Meetings Act. If a final vote is required on any of these items, it will be taken upon reconvening into open session. We're now in closed session. Okay, the time is 8:56 p.m. We're now reconvening into open session. No action was taken in executive session. The time, again, we're in open session. First item that we have is Item 16A, pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074, personnel matters and consultation with, 17A, consideration to approve the position of Director for Early College High School by De Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Mr. Carlos Barrera as Director for Early College High School.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Ms. Diana Gonzalez made the motion, seconded by Mr. Contreras. We're going to take a vote again. Mr. Contreras, in favor. Myself, in favor. Diana Gonzalez, in favor. Amy Haynes, in favor. Linda Webb, in favor. Mr. Orfeld, in favor. Unanimous.
Okay,
6.
next.
Yes.
Next, we have, it's the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Ms. Carol Sunderland as Assistant Principal for Ruben Chavira Elementary.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself, in favor, Diana Gonzalez. In favor, Amy Haynes. In favor, Ms. Webb. In favor, Mr. Orfeld. Unanimous. 6 affirmative. Motion passes.
Finally, we have the recommendation that administration recommends for Board of Trustees to approve Monica Ruiz as counselor for Garfield Elementary.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Amy Haynes, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? In favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Mrs. Webb in favor, Mr. Overfeld. Motion passes unanimously. 6 affirmative. Dr. Reeves?
He's on mute.
Can't hear you.
Mr. President, members of the board, just a comment. I know that we didn't fill some of the vacancies. There's 2 reasons for it, just so that our parents and students are aware. On the one hand, at Del Rio High School, Mrs. Mona Casillas was already there serving as interim, so that became a permanent assignment. At Lamar Elementary, Mr. Calderon was there serving in an interim position. That position is now permanent, so he's there permanently assigned. And in the other areas, we just want to proceed with caution and wait to see what kind of enrollment we're going to have and what kind of reassignments within the district we're going to have to fill those vacancies and save some money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that explanation. Next item that we have, thank you, Ms. Ate Garcia. Next item that we have is Superintendent's Report, 18A, required board training.
Yes, Mr. President, over the weekend, we sent an update to the board members reminding them that there had been an extension on the deadlines to complete all the trainings. The week before that, we sent every board member individual transcript of the trainings they had required and what was lacking. But for those that are lacking, we hope that you will complete the training in a timely manner. And then also everybody needs to complete the cybersecurity training. At this point, I think we have 1 board member that has completed it. At least that's the last update I got. I know Mr. Overfeld completed his right away. If you need any type of assistance, please let us know. We still have a couple of weeks to complete the cybersecurity training. And we'll be calling individual board members, not to bug you, but just to I know 2 weeks will fly by real soon to make sure that everybody completes it.
Dr. Rios, I think the required time is before June 1st.
Yes, sir. For the cybersecurity training, that is correct.
I think there were 2, cybersecurity and the child abuse reporting.
Yes, Mr. President, but on the child abuse, we have the rest of the summer to complete that one.
Okay, and then also SLI is going to go virtual. So we have time to select our sessions that we would like to see.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Webb, you had a question?
No, it's just a comment. I just gave Betty the certificate on cybersecurity as well.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
The next item that we have, Dr. Rios, 18B, superintendent evaluation.
Yes, Mr. Mesa, just to let board members know, over the next a couple of days, we'll be polling the board members to see what day they would like to conduct the superintendent's evaluation. In the past, we've waited for state assessment results to come in, but that's not going to happen this year. We already know that we've committed to at least one board meeting in on Monday, June 8th. And then we also have a budget meeting. So we'll be sharing that with the board so that we can select that date to do the superintendent's evaluation.
Okay. So it'll be calendar date June. We'll decide on that specific date.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from board members in regard to that training or anything else? There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, Mr. Contreras? Favor, myself in favor, Diana Gonzalez in favor, Amy Haynes in favor, Mrs. Webb in favor, and Mr. Orfeld. Motion is approved. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Night.